All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle one of the biggest debates in music, the endless battle between formal rules and just raw intuition. Is making incredible music about years of study and structure, or is it something you just feel? So let's kick things off with a real head-scratcher, Michael Jackson. Now, he could dabble with a few instruments, sure, but he wasn't a master of any. Instead, get this, he composed these massive, complex hits by literally building them with his voice. He'd beatbox the drum parts, hum the bass lines, and sing every single horn stab and string line. He created entire sonic universes with nothing but his own voice.
And that just makes you wonder, right? If one of the biggest artists of all time wasn't relying on the traditional musical rulebook, reading sheet music, formal theory, then what in the world is that rulebook even for? Okay, so to understand the rebellion, first we have to understand the empire. For centuries, brilliant minds have tried to map out music, to find some kind of logical blueprint for sound itself. This quest goes way, way back, around 500 BCE. The Greek thinker Pythagoras had this aha moment. He figured out that the musical intervals that sound good to us actually correspond to these clean, simple mathematical ratios. An octave, for instance, that's a perfect 2-to-1 ratio. This sparked a huge idea, that music was a window into the hidden order of the universe, that the cosmos itself was built on harmony. And this search for order gave us some of our most basic tools, like the time signature. That's just the rhythmic grid that holds a song together. It's the reason you can tap your foot to almost any song and it just feels right. That steady, predictable pulse. And it also gave us harmony, the magic of combining different notes to create chords. Harmony is what really paints the emotional picture of a song. It's the difference between that bright, happy feeling of a major chord and the kind of dark, thoughtful vibe of a minor chord. It's the whole reason music can feel joyful or tense, or just plain sad.
So here's the key thing. These principles of time and harmony, they're not just random. They create a shared language, a predictable world of sound that we can all tap into and understand. But is it the only way to build that world?
And now, it's time to meet the rebels. The artists who built their masterpieces not with a blueprint, but with a whole different set of tools, their ears and their gut.
I mean, look no further than the Beatles. It's famous, right? They couldn't read or write music the traditional way. Their method wasn't about cracking open a textbook. It was about getting in a room, fooling around with chords, and just chasing whatever sounded good to them.
But here's the really wild part. Just by following their ears, they stumbled into some incredibly sophisticated musical territory. They were using borrowed chords, basically grabbing a chord from a totally different key to create this surprising emotional shift. It's a trick that music theorists study for years, and the Beatles just did it because it felt right. They had no idea what the official terms were. And this gets at a really important point. It challenges this bias a lot of us have, especially in Western music, that good music or complex music is all about fancy chords and harmony.
Because in so much of the music that's huge today, the real genius isn't in the chord progression. Think about a track from an artist like Kendrick Lamar. The harmony might be pretty simple, but the innovation, wow. It's in the microscopic details of the rhythm, the intricate flow of his voice, the texture of every single sound, the timbre. That's where the cutting edge is.
So, if you can create these timeless, complex masterpieces without ever touching a theory book, what's the point? Why even bother learning it? Well, this is where the two sides of this whole debate finally shake hands. It turns out, theory has a totally new purpose.
First off, theory is just about communication. It's a shared language. Instead of trying to say, hey, play that kind of sad, floaty sounding chord right there, you can just say, play an F minor. In a studio, where time is literally money, being able to do that is everything.
Honestly, this is the best way to think about it. Music theory isn't a strict set of laws you have to follow. It's more like a giant, fully stocked pantry. It's got all the possible ingredients you could ever want, but you're still the chef. You get to decide what to mix together and how to cook it up. When it comes down to it, knowing the rules just makes you a faster, more powerful creator. When you get stuck, it gives you a bunch of options to try. It helps you solve problems and makes working with other people a breeze. It just helps you bring your vision to life. And this, right here, is the real takeaway. Artists like Michael Jackson or the Beatles didn't actually ignore the rules of music. Not at all. They just learned them in a different way. They absorbed them through thousands upon thousands of hours of just listening. They internalized all those patterns so deeply that the rules became pure gut instinct.
So we've kind of figured out that music is built on patterns, whether you learn them in a classroom or just absorb them with your ears. But this leads us to one final, much deeper, and honestly, kind of mind-bending question.
The philosopher Immanuel Kant, he had a pretty wild take on this. He argued that the beauty we find in music is purely about its form. It's not actually expressing a specific emotion. It's just a beautiful, abstract arrangement of sounds, a play with sensations.
Then you've got the legendary composer Igor Stravinsky, who took that idea and ran with it. He made this incredibly provocative statement, saying that music, by itself, is basically powerless to express anything. Not joy, not sadness, nothing. It's just sound. Which leaves us here. If music is just organized sound, a collection of patterns and sensations, and if those powerful emotions we feel aren't actually in the notes themselves, then where do they come from? It points to this final, really fascinating idea that maybe the music is really happening inside of us.